so we are going to move into our guest for this evening. We have the lovely Karen Tate. She's here to discuss the Divine Feminine. She is a host of the radio show Voices of the Sacred Feminine, and she's author of Walking an Ancient Path, Rebirthing Goddess on Planet Earth. And you can listen to her radio show on blogtalkradio.com/Voices of the Sacred Feminine. So I want to welcome Karen Tate. Hi, how are you?
Fine.
Good. I'm glad you could make it.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
We've been trying to set this up for some time because we had you booked as a guest many, many moons ago, and then I don't remember what happened. I don't remember what happened. Something happened. You're here now, and I know Simone is very disappointed because she was the one that had contacted you originally.
Yeah, me too. But we'll have fun, and
Some
she'll
other
get to watch it.
Right. I'm hoping that she'll be able to sign on when she gets home from her actual job. That's why Simone's not here, because she has a paid gig.
Well, that's good.
You know.
That's always good.
It's always good. You know, paid gigs are good. So I guess we should start out with, what is the Divine Feminine?
Ah, the Divine Feminine. The Divine Feminine is the feminine face of God. You know, most of us grew up, I think, you know, in this Judeo-Christian culture. I know myself, for instance, I grew up in New Orleans, the Bible Belt, the Catholic. And, you know, you really didn't hear about a feminine face of God. You know, you just heard about, you know, Yahweh and Jesus and, you know, or Buddha, or, you know, these male faces of divinity. And but that's not the way it always was. In fact, if you start to get into women's studies and feminist theology, and you look at the archaeology and the artifacts, you see that humankind was actually worshiping a feminine face of God maybe longer than 40,000 years ago. And it's only been a few thousand years that we've actually been worshiping a male god. So it's a feminine face of God. It's a she. God is a woman, the great she.
Okay. And how does this, how do you teach about this, or what do you do with this?
Well, I think when someone first discovers that there is such a thing as a feminine face of God, maybe for women in particular, it's very personal, because all of your life, you know, more than likely, if you're in the West, you've grown up with the idea that God is a man, and that God, you know, men are made in God's image. So that has sort of set up this gender inequality that we all just take as normal, you know, but of course we know it's really not normal. And so at first for women, it's really empowering to find out that there's a feminine face of God, and how prevalent all around the world she's been, because it's really in the West that she's sort of swept under the rug. I mean, like for instance in India, they never let go of that idea. So they've had goddess for, you know, 3,000 years there, and, you know, in other cultures and other countries too. So, but what do you do with it? For women, it's empowering because they understand that, you know, they are made in the image of the divine, just as men have always been taught they were. So it's sort of, you know, then it becomes social, it becomes cultural, it becomes political. You know, you become empowered as a person, and you start thinking about equality, justice. And so for me, and I think maybe I speak for, you know, a lot of women out there, you know, it started out just as understanding that there really shouldn't have ever been gender inequality. And so it's very personal. But then when you start to also look at the feminine divine as it moves from deity to archetype, and I guess maybe a simple way to understand archetypes is they're sort of role models. And we can, you know, use goddess as a role model to be the best that we can be. And then it also gets into the idea of ideals. You know, what ideals come in as part of the package of the sacred feminine, divine feminine, goddess. I use all of those terms interchangeably. What ideals come along with these principles, these concepts that can actually lead to social transformation. And so I think it's an evolution. First it's personal, then you see how these ideas can affect your community, then you look at how these ideas can really change the world.
Very nice.
You said all of God and Yahweh and Buddha and other gods, which are each of different religions. Are there also other female gods, or is it just one?
Yeah, actually, no. I think of goddess as sort of the poster girl for diversity. You look across continents and cultures, and there are goddesses across the entire globe. One of the other books I wrote was Sacred Places of Goddess, 108 Destinations. And my husband and I traveled to a lot of these other countries where, you could find either living traditions where people were still worshiping the feminine face of God today, or archaeological sites where it used to be. But, all through Europe, they worshipped the feminine face of God. India, you go to Japan, and the Shinto still today honor Amaterasu. You have in China, there's Kuan Yin Island. In Hawaii, it's Polynesians. There's this mix of Polynesian religion with, Christianity now, but the indigenous people, they haven't given up on Pele and her sisters. You have the Native Americans who, have the, many different goddesses. You have the Inuits up in like Canada and Newfoundland. You have Aztec and Mayan goddesses. Really around the globe. It's just these ideas have sort of been swept under the rug for patriarchal gods that some people think are the only real gods.
And so with working with the divine feminine, are you, because some people will say that regardless of religion, God is God. We're just using different names.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing the same thing with the divine feminine? Are all of these goddesses essentially the same goddess by a different name, or are they actually?
Well, I think there's no absolute answer. It depends on who you talk to. Mm-hmm. Personally, I believe that whatever that ultimate source is out there, I believe it encompasses both male and female aspects. But our monkey brains, it's kind of hard for us to not chop things up into smaller packages. And so for the most part, we've, if say for instance, you were in ancient Egypt, they took all the Egyptian gods and chopped them up into different deities in different cities. And, we sort of do the same thing. I personally believe there's one probably ultimate creator, creatrix, probably something, some source that encompasses male and female together. But the idea is, for so long, we have only focused on the male and the attributes that we as humans attribute to the male. Mm-hmm. We feel like, and we look at what has happened to the world as a result of maybe seeing things only through that male lens. So now we say, well, look, that's out of balance. That isn't wholeness. We have to look at the feminine, what the feminine aspect of God would also bring to the equation, and how it might change people's lives and the way we look at things, so that we do have more wholeness and balance, because we've been out of balance, only looking at things through a male perspective and those attributes that we label male.
What would the differences between the male aspect of the teachings and the female aspect of the teachings? What would they be?
Well, for instance, we believe that we live in a dominator culture right now, a patriarchal culture. where it's sort of this idea of hierarchy, top down, the few haves at the top, the rest of us mostly at the bottom, sort of cogs in the wheel. Riane Eisler writes a lot about that in one of her books, Chalice and the Blade, which I highly recommend. It really sort of started to explain all of this and actually put me on the path. I have to, give her credit. She's a wonderful visionary and scholar. And so the male aspects are much more linear, much more self-centered, and you have this dominator culture. And I'm just going to use a few examples right now, but in feminist theology, we talk about the aspects that the feminine face of God would bring in. Well, instead of domination, we'd have partnership. We would try to create win-win situations rather than a winner and a loser. We would be looking for peace. We'd be looking for justice. We'd be looking for equality. It wouldn't be about the haves versus the have-nots. It would be a level playing field where everybody has a chance, at a good life and equality rather than the oppression that comes with a patriarchal society.
Now, I admit that I often consider myself a feminist and do a lot of feminist scholarship. And what I run across quite frequently is that one that's sort of the dirty F word.
Yes.
To be a feminist is the dirty word. Because of, I believe, radical feminism that was so anti-male. So can you address that aspect of what tends to be popularly believed at this point?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I think something that's really important is to really reclaim what feminism is. And I'm talking about feminism today, the women that I work with, the things that we believe, what we would like to see happen in the world. And to quote this wonderful pastor, Stacy Bourne, she runs her church in San Francisco. I believe, I want to say it's a Lutheran feminist church. And it's wonderful. You go in and you see feminine faces of God, And anyway, she's referred to feminism as a caring culture. And that's what we really want, a caring culture. And I believe what's happened is the people who like the power structure the way it is, the people that benefit from the inequality. Well, they're great propagandists. They've put across the idea if women had equality, well, that would unravel the fabric of society. It doesn't matter to them, and it's usually white males, and I like men, don't get me wrong, I've been married to the best man in the world for 26 years, but these guys who are into power and control and, don't care about equality, this unraveling of society, well, gee, would that mean they might have to pay women the same as they pay men for the same job? Might that mean that white women wouldn't be getting paid 80 cents on the dollar and, black or Hispanic women even less? Might that mean that 70 or 80% of women wouldn't have to retire in poverty? I don't think women really know these statistics, quite frankly. I don't think most of them bother to even look at their inequality. I mean, we don't even have an Equal Rights Amendment. Here in the United States, women got the vote after women in Turkey, believe it or not. So it's this idea of elevating women, bringing them up to par, so that there is justice, that there is equality in the world. And we're so far behind Europe, for instance. In Europe, there are countries where when a family has a baby, the man and the woman are expected to each take 6 months off to take care of the child. If a woman decides to stay home and be a caretaker, well, she gets something on par with Social Security, so that, she does, so those years that she spent dedicated to her family, she does actually, she's not
at
losing.
The end of her.
Exactly. It's real family values,
right.
Not what passes for family values in this country. So there's a lot of that, and maybe there was a lot of anger, with with some early feminists. Quite frankly, when I hear these statistics, I get angry today because it's really unfair, and it seems as if to want equality, to want justice is, you shouldn't get angry if you don't have it. It's not, they want us to accept injustice and inequality, just sort of laying down as if it's okay because we're females. And I don't think that's how it was, it should be,